Hi, everyone. So I'm not going to teach it to you, right? Observability is a big, never-ending project, right? You have several tools available, like metrics, traces, and logs. You have many teams involved, which can create a lot of issues because you need to coordinate all these teams together if you want your project to be fruitful. And you need to customize these systems so that they work well for your needs and the needs of every individual team. It can conflict with your roadmap because you need also to ship features. And of course, you need to set up governance rule, right? So that you don't go over budget or you don't leak PIIs and don't create issues for the entire organization. And on top of that, application level observability brings additional constraints such as you need dedicated tools for each technology because a mobile application is different from a database and a web application and a serverless function. You need code-level instrumentation and deployments if you want to have all the granularity of information you could get in order to improve the performance of your services. You can have conflicting interests between teams, like I need my service to be traced, and so to see all the details of the time spent on each portion of a request. But to do that well, I need upstream teams to do that as well. And if they don't think it's what they should do right now, then I'm having a problem. And last, you need technology and even language expertise, which can create additional issues, notably if you have to manage legacy languages and legacy frameworks. So it can take months. One of our Fortune 500 customers in EMEA, in the retail space, decided to have a centralized strategy for all their observability with over 4,000 software engineers. And it took them between 18 to 24 months to have something sort of useful and functional. And of course, never-ending project, so it doesn't mean that after all this time, it's finished. So that's why I'm going to tell you today all the new features we launched in the past few months in the APM suite world to help you manage these big rollout projects in a better fashion by first identifying which services are the most important to understand if you want your system to work at scale. Second, help you prioritize the services that you need to put pressure onto and to understand well right now if you want your business to be successful. And last, understand exactly what are the right tools to understand the good behavior of services, because as I said earlier, depending on the sort of service, you might need different sort of instrumentations. It's not always only about metrics, logs, and traces. So first, we introduced a few months ago a product that is still in beta, which is named Universal Service Monitoring. Universal Service Monitoring provides you with topology and red metrics in minutes. So red metrics are requests, errors, and durations. These are the golden metrics to understand the health of any backend service. And the difficulty of getting these services with distributed tracing is it requires you to deploy an agent to collect the data, but also to do tracing at the code level. With technologies like USM that leverage eBPF, you can collect this information without having to deploy any code, nor to actually get into the code. You can roll it out by just using the Datadog agent, and it integrates seamlessly with the rest of Datadog. And you can ask me, okay, but is it enough? Because as I was saying, here you don't have the details of all the traces, right? You don't have the duration of each span to understand how much time was spent in each of the portion of your service, so to troubleshoot duration. Does it suffice? Well, first, it gives you the topology. So it makes it a great tool to understand how your services are interconnected. And it helps you understand that here, I have a critical path service that is actually the gateway within my all services. Then you can identify high throughput services. So it means that these services and the services on the path for these are very good candidates for me to set up distributed tracing and get into the details to understand how our spans, how much time is spent on each span, so on each subportion of this request. But also potentially to set up some profiling and understand what are the bottlenecks, what are the resources that are currently limiting the performance of my requests on these services, and to understand whether it's a RAM problem, an I/O problem, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a great tool for you to roll out observability around all your services, understand the services that you own, and then get into the details and pick and choose where to put your efforts right now. And across these backend services, some of them are special. And these are these sensitive shared databases, which leads me to the next product that we announced a few months ago, database monitoring. As you know, databases are tricky objects because they are shared responsibilities. You have developers who make queries against them to get the data they need to power their applications. You have database admins, DBAs, who are in charge of ensuring that these databases are optimized and well functioning so that everything goes fast. And you have SREs, because whenever you have a problem involving a database, it's usually very critical and very sensitive because you might be losing extremely important information for your organization. So you're in a rush. And so all these teams might have issues collaborating together to fixing these issues, because when an issue arises, you actually have three ways of fixing it when it comes to databases. Either you optimize the queries, that can be done by developers, or you improve the database configuration, which is within the realm of the DBA, or you can upscale the infrastructure. And you know what? Very often, these two options are discarded. Why? Because they are very hard to set up and to put in motion, because you need collaboration between teams that have a hard time collaborating together because they don't necessarily speak the right language. And so that's how you end up systematically upscaling the DB infrastructure, which is extremely costly and suboptimal in many cases. So that's why DB monitoring brings you more information. So it creates a new sort of object within Datadog, which are the databases. And for these databases, you will have the right telemetry. You will have the number of queries and rows that are happening on this database. You will have the number of wait events, helping you understand how much time the database was not performing the queries that you were asking them to perform. You will have the top queries performed on top of each database, meaning that it's very easy to understand, okay, what are the queries I should optimize my system for if I want it to be performant for real-life production for my developers. It also takes the other approach, which is take a query-centric approach. So we group together similar queries into what we call normalized queries in order to help you understand across the board what are the queries that are the most common. And we help you understand in which cases these queries are slower, so in which cases you might have needs to get into details to understand how to improve that. And in order to get into details, we also collect constantly the explain plans, which are the details of how your database query optimizer is interpreting the query to actually render the results. It's extremely useful to understand if ever your optimizer might be sub-optimized and might need some more love in order to render your queries faster. And you can slice and dice all that across any sort of tag so that if ever you have a problem on a specific DB, let's say in the APAC region, well, it's easier to compare it with the DB you might have in EMEA or in the US. So you could see here specific sort of service that requires specific telemetry, specific sort of objects that need to be collected if you want to be efficient and help your organization be more efficient at fixing problems touching databases. Another sort of very critical applications are your client-side applications. And so for that, we released a few months ago a session replay product. So in the RUM space, real user monitoring space, where you capture the telemetry from the perspective of end users on browser or mobile applications. Session replay provides you with additional information by rendering a video-like replay of what's happening to the end user, how they are interacting with the screen, and it provides you with all the details of the telemetry that's happening at the time, helping you understand exactly what were the steps leading to an issue, and you can use that along with performance informations and all the waterfall informations and correlate it with APM traces. You see the backend trace sign on my right-hand side in order to understand how to optimize the user experience. And it can be also used by product managers and designers in order to optimize the experience of the end users by identifying when the system is confusing or frustrating. And here again, we very recently, like literally last week, added this new set of features which are named the frustration signals and help you identify whenever there are specific behaviors of customers that might indicate that they are unhappy with the application as is. So it includes rage click, where, well, the end user is frantically clicking on the button because it doesn't respond the way it's supposed to. We identify dead clicks, where nothing happens after a click, which is usually a good indicator that something on your page is actually misleading. It looks like a button, but it's not. And error clicks, whenever there is a click, and right after that click, there is an error arising. And all that is tied up within the real user monitoring and session replay experience. So here as well, specific sort of service, specific telemetry attached to it. So I hope overall you understood that our goal here with all these announcements that we made recently and that are one of our main axes of investment for the overall APM suite of products is really to help you identify what's the topology of your system, where you should put your energy in order to get deeper insights, and then get the right telemetry for each of these systems. Thank you.